One thing about the bombing, I've never lived in the present so much as I did then. I lived now and now and now. I never thought about yesterday or the day after. It was a wonderful feeling. I learnt something then. But Hitler did do us all a favour. He drove the bed bugs out of our house. They all died of night starvation because we weren't sleeping in the bed. They got no bodies to feed on.
A Christmas bonus was being distributed within the German Reich. An additional 26 ounces of rice and vegetables, and just over a pound of sugar, jam and coffee per person. The bonus didn't prevent a rash of black market deals for food and presents. And across the rest of Europe, as Christmas loomed, rationing was biting ever deeper.
Ah, here's a date for you. No, I'm sorry. This is the date I meant. December 14th. Now you can get your new lot of dried egg. Here's the date, and here's the tin. And there's that other date.
Food rationing was gradually being introduced in Germany. In France and Britain, rationing had been in force for over a year, and more goods required coupons.
It was difficult with food rationing. There was a little bit of all sorts of things you were allowed, like 2 ounces of butter and 4 ounces of sugar and things per person a week, which made catering very difficult. My mother used to grumble a lot. What wasn't on rationing was on points, that you could get jam and treacle, but you had to give up so many points for them. Biscuits, gravy powder, custard powder, jellies and things, you got them, but they were on points, so you were limited to what you could get.
My father kept rabbits in the garden and he had an allotment. But in the end the rabbits had to go because he couldn't get enough food to feed them, to feed us.
Well, my
father had a business dealing in wrapping paper and string. And so there were great possibilities for barter. And in our family we didn't have a bad time of it. Every butcher needed string to tie up his sausages. And so he would be given a little more string and we would get a sausage in return. There was a great deal of under-counter bartering of things you couldn't officially buy.
The food rations the Germans gave us were not enough to satisfy our appetite. And I remember one day when I'd been very sensible. I had divided my bread ration into 3, but when it came to that evening, my final portion was so mouldy that despite my hunger, I did not want to eat it.
Thanks to the shortages, people on both sides of the channel had to use their imagination.
My friend was married and her wedding cake was a plain chocolate cake, but over the top was covered with white cardboard and all little silver decorations on it. For the photographs it looks as though she had a wedding cake, but when you lifted off the cardboard cover it was a chocolate cake, just plain chocolate cake. Clothes were very short, very hard. You mended everything if it went. You didn't throw it out, not until it was really in rags.
Our parents wore silk stockings. As for us, we made pretend tights by taking a mixture of grilled nuts, a sort of brown juice. I would paint this brown juice onto my legs and draw a seam on the back of my leg with pencil, so that from behind it looked as though we were wearing stockings.
Merchant ships carrying vital supplies across the Atlantic were being sunk at an unsustainable rate. Last month, in November 1940, 76 ships were sent to the seabed. The British Navy was providing armed escorts to the convoys in an attempt to get supplies through the packs of German submarines.
We were doing a North Atlantic convoy and it was very rough. and I was on the upper deck manning one of the guns, and one of the accommodation ladders on the port side, which was the weather side, became loose. We were detailed off to go down onto the quarterdeck and try to secure this ladder. It's quite a heavy thing, made of wood. And while I was down trying to secure this thing, a big wave came. I was dressed in oilskins, duffel coat, sea boots, the whole lot, because it was very cold. And the next thing I knew, I was washed overboard.
We wouldn't stop. You don't get a battleship stop and pick up survivors, not unless it's all clear and everything, see?
And I remember seeing the ship passing me by, and I thought, oh my God, this is it. And then the ship rolled towards me, and the next thing I knew, the next wave had washed me back on board. They took me up to the galley to thaw me out, and you were only allowed to have a rum once you were 18, but because I was so cold, they brought me a tot of rum, and I think that was the first tot of rum I ever had.